do. Great. So if you're on here, you're going to get this recording. If you're not on here and you're listening, then you obviously got it. And so if you guys miss anything, some of our guys are going to be in the chat. So if you have questions or things, I would actually just encourage you to unmute and ask it. But if you have stuff and you're like, man, I don't want to be that guy, then ask it in the chat and we will do our thing. All right. So here we go. Here's the you guys can see that you're going to get. It is very undeveloped. So I don't want any comments or any rude things in the chat. Just give me some grace today, okay? But here's what we're going to do. Number one is we're gonna do this again. We're gonna shamelessly talk about this because some of you guys are dinking around and you need to get here. This is for you guys. It's in the middle of October. It's post fall launch. It's a great time. We basically have set it up to do three things. We're going to do 2 days of some content, and then we're going to go to the Paris, not Paris, France, but the top of the Paris. We're going to play golf or sit by the pool, and we're going to just have a great time together. This is for executive level leaders that are wanting to meet some others, grow in content, and grow in some different things that would help. So it's not necessarily for your entire staff. I'll let you vet that out, but it's for people that are at the table when you're making decisions that you would want to do that. And that's what we aim it to be. Day one is really going to be much more self-focused around personal prayer development. What's revival looking like within your church as far as where God's awakening some things? And then day two will be a lot more strategic content. So we've got David Thomas, who is a good friend of Rob Hall's, who's going to be coming in from Asbury and just talking not about how to create revival in your church. That's how we're doing. We're going to be talking about how does prayer impact us as individual leaders, and what does that look like within the church to be a church that would be open to what God's doing. So there's that. Then Lance, who's been with us a number of times, is a great friend of Grow Minimum. He has a ministry called Replenish as a former pastor, and he's got some great stuff that he's already told us about. And then I put Jake's picture on here because he's a good looking dude. But really, we're going to have a bunch of the people that you may know, some of whom are on this call on the second day, really share around some of the both practical but also challenging things that you're going to be able to take away. Like we all go to conferences where the mingling is the best thing, and this will probably be like that. But on that second day, we really want to give you like here's some wins that I'm having and why I'm having them. Here's some practical things. So you're going to hear in short spurts from some leaders that are part of our Grow Minimum network, and Jake being one of them, who's been at Real Life Church in Valencia for about a year, but also spent time at Traders Point and Eastside in SoCal, and also spent time grinding as a church planner. He's got it all. So he's going to be one of those, but we have a bunch. You'll hear from me. You'll hear from Kay, some of our Grow Minimum team. So you can still get in. Some of you guys are just late to it, but now is the time to actually lock in so that we can lock in our stuff. So any questions on that, you can drop them in the chat and the guys will hit it. Okay. Registration is open. You can bring your spouse if you want. They can participate in the conference or just lay around in Las Vegas and participate in the evening. So it starts on a Wednesday night and ends on a Friday. Somebody mute if you're not muted, because we don't want to hear whatever's going on in the background, or Brennan, you can mute them. Hey, one of the things we talk about for those of you that are new, or if you spend any time with any of our team, is around this idea of work on it, work in it. Today, we're going to kind of skirt the line of talking about some work on it concepts, and then hopefully giving you some work in it. Here's what I want you to think about as you're listening to me and listening to us and some of the contributors, which hopefully will be some of you. What's the one thing out of the 8 or 9 that we're going to talk about today that you can immediately pay attention to and implement? Let me say that again. What's the one thing? It's like I'm some of you guys preaching on Sunday where you wish your people would just take one thing away. I just want you to take one thing away today, or at least think that way. Number 2 is we are going to try to dial in a couple resources or tools from each of these that we're going to talk about that will be helpful to you. What we're not going to probably have time to do on the call is to deep dive into those. So here's what I want to tell you in advance we're going to offer you. One is we're going to send you some of these resources. So there may be a tool that like you want to use and there's a resource. We're going to get it to you or you can ask for it if you don't get it. Number two is we are at the end of the call going to offer some deep dives. For those of you that are new or haven't been on a call for a while, we've been taking some time to actually deep dive. So there's topics that we blow through on the call, but you're going, man, I really want to talk about that more. At the end of the call, some of our team will offer some deep dives that are just 30-minute focused Zoom calls in the next 10 days that you can jump in and say, I'd love to be a part of that. So just so you know that. All right, cool. Anybody on our team, and if you guys want to jump in on this, please do. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do what we're calling fall momentum blockers. And one of the graphics that we use that you guys should probably steal and put up on the wall with your team the next time you're there, because I think it's a great picture, is this idea of the water runs at the lowest slat. This is one of Kay's favorite things. He wasn't able to be on the call today, but basically the picture is so great because it basically talks about you're only going to make progress potentially at the place at which you can raise that lowest slat on the barrel of the leadership and the work and the impact and the vision that you have. So part of what we're doing today is hitting about 9 different what we're calling momentum blockers. In other words, we're all heading into fall. Some of you are in it already. Some of you are a week or two away. Tom's back from sabbatical. Some of Becker's back from the Pacific Northwest. Um, Rob's back from Africa. Wherever you went, now we're back and we're doing that. Hopefully your team's back. Some of you may be wrestling with that. You want to deep dive onto how do I get my team to come back? But the rest of you, this is the idea today. And what we're going to be talking about is the lowest slat that you potentially can identify that you need to take to your team. So it'd be an interesting conversation, actually, if you're looking for something to go, how do we kick off our next staff conversation? To throw this up there and say, hey, as a part of us assessing what do we believe at the moment is our lowest slat as far as, and by the way, never frame that without framing vision or mission. Don't just ask for input like, what do you think? Because you're going to get stuff that's just a rant and a riff versus based on the vision and the mission that we have, what is currently one of the lowest slats that will block us from being able to go to the next level. Make sense, you guys? This is where you nod so that I know that you're not having lunch. Great. Rob, how has this played out at New North? I'm going to just pick on some people today. When you think, I know this picture isn't necessarily what you always use, but how has this concept helped you as you've led the team over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think for us, as we're always, as you helped us do an SMP, as we're looking at our 1 year goals, our 1 year plan, we're always kind of, change, like it almost seems like it's constantly changing what that lower slat is. And for us, I feel like half the battle is just identifying it, because a lot of times we don't even know where we're leaking water. And so we had a good conversation just this week as we prepare to go to 3 services in January. We're going, wait a second, we got lower slats all over the place. Let's start repairing those now and not wait until we go to 3 services. So I don't know if that is what you're
No, it's
asking,
good.
but
No, it's great. Anybody else want to weigh in on any of that as far as how they've tackled it, if they've used that concept at all? Cool. Hopefully some of this will help you identify that if you haven't used that idea before. It'll be great. So here's some of them. All right. Here's kind of the overarching thesis for today for our call is that fall should be one of the strongest seasons for momentum. Hopefully people are back in rhythm. Maybe families are coming back. There may be a hunger for connection. This is even above and beyond some of the kind of awakening that we're feeling across the country and in the UK. Vision can advance because of that, but momentum is also fragile. Okay. And so we always say it like this: momentum, when you have momentum, you can't be reckless with it and you can't rest in it. Let me say that again. You can't be reckless with it and you can't rest with it. You can't rest in it. Resting in it is kind of just going on cruise control. Reckless is when you have momentum and you think we can do anything we want because it's all going to work out. It's going to be fine. There are things that will actually, in the midst of the fall momentum, block you or potentially provide barriers for you to actually advance forward. Note to all of you on the call today at the place you sit at the table, your team should be executing the fall stuff. You should already be in the first trimester of 2026 in your head. Some of you just exited the call. But seriously, like Austin's getting ready to start a capital campaign to raise a couple $1 million. And I said that, and he's like, what are you talking about? But the reality is, as the highest capacity leader on your team, potentially, as your team is executing and you're guiding them, you're not checking out, you need to be thinking about what does the first trimester of 2026 look like? Because by the time you execute everything this fall, if you haven't noticed, because of the holidays, the fall trimester tends to get really compressed. So, like when Brandon in a few minutes talks about generosity and stewardship, what you don't recognize is that's coming at you like a freight train already if you're doing end of year stuff or you're doing giving. And so just be aware of that. Okay. So leaders got to recognize what can derail it and what systems need to be tuned, or to using the picture we just showed, what slat needs to be shored up in order to sustain it. All right. Good. Any of our team want to add to that before we get into these nine? Help clarify where we're going. This is where I awkwardly invite people in and no one talks. So if you're new to the call, this is always fun. There it is. It's like all of you on this call talk all the time. You talk incessantly in front of your people, and then you get on here and it's like you're like, whatever. It's fine. I'll get over it. Okay. So here we go. You ready? So number one, this is a momentum crusher for you guys as your teams come back. Some of you, your meetings are a mess. I know that's very candid. You're like, wow, thanks, Lee, for slapping us. But if you're honest, you hate your meetings and you're the one leading your meetings. Some of you, okay? Some of you have gotten really efficient at meetings. We want to hear from you in the next minute or two. So, as I said earlier, we're not here to solve your meeting issues, but I do want to talk a little bit about what are some ways in which you can sustain some momentum around those meetings, to make sure that they're as effective as possible. By a show of hands, how many of you are actually, and it's fine, how many of you are actually like, I believe that we at this moment are nailing our meeting rhythms and are effective? Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. How many of you go like, man, we're nailing it? Tom's been back a week and he's nailing it. All right. How many of you are nailing it? Nobody's raising their hands. All right, Winger, a little bit. Winger, talk about why you think you're nailing it, and then we'll convince you you're not.
I have an executive team, so I don't get into their meetings, and
All
I meet
right,
up
very
with my
cool.
team at the beginning of the week, so that way I release them. So I have a heavy Monday, but then
That's
after that,
it.
a couple one-on-one. So I'm out of the mess. So
Okay.
whether
Do
their
you
meetings are messy, I don't
okay,
know.
so you're speaking. Do you get any sense, Mike, that they, and mess is a very strong word, but I was trying to get your attention, all of you guys. You get any sense, Mike, as you talk to them about the effectiveness or level of effectiveness of those meetings at all?
Right now, the what we are probably experiencing is just a lack of like I've been leading the team of like whoever's leading the meeting has to like button it up at the end. So like make sure everybody knows who are the clear takeaways. So I actually just
Right.
banned devices and laptops and meetings. We went back to old school notebooks and it's all written
Analog.
down.
Analog.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to give you guys a couple things and then maybe some of you guys can talk about. We always talk about the rhythm being a work on it, work in it rhythm. So as Mike's talking about his once a week, right? It sounds very work on it with his team. What are the high capacity, high level things we need to do, right? If you are if you're leading or setting the tone of meetings, you want to make sure that you define them as what they are accomplishing. So right now, if you're on here and you're like, yeah, we have a weekly team meeting, that's cool. My encouragement as you head into the fall would be, our encouragement would be, how do you actually create a little bit more of a theme around what that particular meeting in the course of your month looks like, right? And we use work on it, work in it. You can use different terms if you want, but it's basically like, if I come into this meeting, I understand what we're trying to accomplish. High level things, or are we in the weeds, which we would call work in it? And so even on the team that I served on, we would have the same meeting every week at the same time, but we created a flow of once a month it was work on it, the other three were work in it, and we made sure to separate that a little bit. And so that's pretty important that we do. If you're feeling like your meetings are going to be a momentum blocker, it might be good. Becker, talk about your meetings without getting a little bit too in the weeds, because Becker loves meetings. He even has names for all of his meetings. And so, very carefully, Brian, explain the best flow that you can to people that are not in your day to day, because yours are a little complex.
Yeah, I'll help everyone feel a lot better about their meetings. I inherited the Patrick Lencioni model when I came to Lakeside 2 years ago. So they have tactical meetings and strategic meetings, and that's kind of on it and in it. It's good. I actually am not a structured person, so I actually gravitate to structure. So I enjoy those meetings. But what I realized was they had an infrastructure, but there were missing meetings that were needed to add culture. So, like, there was no gathering of our pastoral team, or there was no gathering of our teaching team. So that was everybody was on their own kind of siloed, even though they had this infrastructure. The problem is that my missing meetings, well, the benefit is that they added culture. The problem is they went from missing to messy because I kind of messed up that structure, and they lacked effectiveness because, for instance, like our teaching team, I wanted to at least get everyone around the table, see our teaching team talk about development, and I knew it couldn't be a lot to add to people's plate, so we did a 30 minutes every week just to touch base, kind of go over the message, and maybe do a development piece. But because it was only 30 minutes, if my previous meeting went long, it went into that meeting. So I would just cancel the meeting, and then no one would know if we even had meeting. And then because it was my responsibility to lead,
Mm.
sometimes I'd be like, all right, the win is that we're sitting down looking at each other, but I really don't have much for us to talk about. So it added culture by adding it, but then I realized it needed to be better. So we had to rework this week, actually, which is why Lee asked me to talk. We are working on the infrastructure and the responsibility of who owns each meeting. And even so, if we have four teaching team meetings, it's one different person on our teaching team owns it so they can bring something more substantial to the table. That's just an example.
It's interesting that Peterson just put in there, letting people own parts of the meeting and lead it out is actually an effective way to. Jeremy, I would assume you're saying as well, it's an effective way to keep them engaged as
Yeah,
well
for
if they're
sure. That way
leading
they're not
part of the
just
meeting.
yeah, whether that way they're just not hearing us talk the entire time. But if they have responsibility of like, hey, 3 weeks from now, I want you to talk on this, then it gets other people involved and there's more engagement.
Andrew just put in the chat, for those of you that aren't looking at the chat, a really good summary of Lencioni's death by meetings, the tactical, the stuff that Brian was just talking about. Again, not that you have to directly adapt this, but I would love if any win, if this is your one and we're going to move forward here, that you would say, we've got to determine what this meeting is and what we're trying to accomplish. You know, if you've been around us for very long, we're going to want you, we're going to talk about it later in this call. We're going to want you to set rocks, have objectives. The problem is if you don't have any accountability in your meetings around how those are moving forward, then your meetings are not effective. Or if you're just constantly talking about who left the door open and why is there not enough storage space in the kids' room, people want to kill themselves in those meetings. And so you guys, I would assume, are typically the owner of those meetings. So you can rein it in so that people actually do that. To Mike's earlier point, one of the key things that we talk about in a work on it or work in it meeting, I'm going to give you one practical tool and one term. Many of you use it. It's what we call brief back, and you should write that at the bottom of your agenda for every meeting until you remember it and do it naturally. Because some of you are right on the thinking wavelengths, or like me, you're an Enneagram 8, and you think the meeting just continues in the hallway and out in the parking lot and all the way to lunch. And so the meeting never stops, it just ongoing throughout the day. But the people in the room that are much more of your tactical people by nature, they need a brief back, which is a law enforcement term. I don't know if Tom can probably speak to that, where it's basically like if we're on some sort of an operation, at the end of the discussion, they brief back, and the people that are going to go do something actually around the room say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. And so there's clarity around what was decided and what actions are going to be taken. So if you need to write brief back at the bottom of all your Google Docs for your meeting agendas for a season, do it. Um, Especially if you're finding you come back to the next meeting and stuff was forgotten. The digital cue, and then we're going to move on, is something we're using on our team now at Growmentum so much, and we're using it right now on this call. I use it with all of you guys that I coach, is what's called Granola.ai. It's free right now. It'll probably cost you when they really get you sucked in, but it's a lot of you are using Otter. I know that because it comes up on this call. Granola is better. Basically, it's really good at transcribing. It's really good at summarizing and getting rid of the small talk. And you can folder it so that if I talk to Kevin Noonan and we have a whole thing, the next time I'm going to talk to Kevin, I can pull that up. So if you're doing one-on-ones, so it can both connect to your computer, or you can literally just open it on your phone, throw it on the desk, and do a transcript of the meeting, and then send it out as a summary. It'll do the summary for you. So poke around with it. That's a free thing right now. I'm sure they're sucking us in to go charge us, but it's called granola.ai. Maybe somebody can drop the link to download that in the chat. So, all right, we're going to keep moving. If you have other things to say about meetings, say it in the chat. We'd love to hear it. Okay. Here's number two. Number two is, as we head into fall, we're big pathway people at Growmentum. I want you to start looking at, are your pathways making progress? Okay. When we talk about pathways, we're mostly talking about people that are now discovering you for the first time or the first time in a long time. Is the pathway that you have making progress? So here's our example that we always use of a pathway, but I'm going to allow you guys to unmute and talk about it. Number one, if you don't have this, then you need to, in the next 30 days, start to lean into your team to figure out what this is. If you do have it, you need to check on and do some assessment around what is the effectiveness of the pathway that you are currently using that's moving people forward. All right. And how is that actually working for you as a church? It's your front door, basically. It's your front door and how we're moving people. So real quickly, let me just show you this on the screen. This is what we call your influence zone. These are the people that you potentially are going to reach. And these are just placeholders, but it's what's happening through search. This is hopefully the most powerful one for your church, the friend-to-friend relationships, church online. And this is stuff you're doing in the community, outreach, or different events that may be providing exposure and endearment. We believe that most of your people are going to touch your church community for the first time through a gathering, typically. And we want you to focus on how well are you providing a way for them to identify themselves? Are you clear around what your initial step is? And at that initial step, is there clarity and simplicity to an initial engagement step into one of these other areas? Typically, in most of your churches, it's a serve team or it's another environment that's a little deeper. Joel, can you take a minute and talk about the work you guys have done around this a little bit? At Joel's church is in rural Indiana, church of 900 to 1,000, so they're medium sized. Joel, talk a little bit about the wins and losses of your pathway journey, if you wouldn't mind. Joel's like, oh crap.
Yeah. A few years ago, Lee and the team came out, did a SMP, and we clarified a 10-year vision, core values, 3-year picture, 1-year plan. And so what we've been working on since that time is clarifying our pathways, moving people from out in the street into the seats, and then connecting them into next steps. And so in our context, we're in a declining population community. So one of the things we've just started is providing welcome gift baskets to everyone who's moving into our community, because there's not a lot, so we want to capture everybody that can. And so that's been a good way to,
Your
uh,
context is really intimate, right, Joel? Like
yeah,
personal touch, all of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, trying to go over the top with personal touch. So a couple weeks ago, when we had our back to school Sunday, we had any school employee identify themselves with a chance to win Amazon gift cards and teacher gift baskets. And so that was another way they were kind of on that second level to contact more people and then follow up with them about taking their next steps. And like several of you, I mean, we've done the digital connection cards, in-person connection cards, and so um, all of those are just ways that we've tried to
How
clarify
often
our
are you
strategy to get
scrubbing?
people
How
moving.
often are you scrubbing this, Joel?
Uh, yeah,
Maybe more. You need to more. Okay,
every trimester.
great. How effective is it? Austin Owens, you want to talk about what you guys are doing in this pathway, good, bad, and otherwise? You're not rural
Y-
Indiana. You're urban Houston, suburban
Yeah,
Houston.
yeah, I would say definitely doing like what most of us are doing, the Connect card thing. That was a great question though, the scrubbing it. When have we scrubbed it? Gosh, Lee, it's been too long. So that process definitely does need to be revisited. Good gathering, but as you go to further down that funnel, something that we definitely probably need to look into.
All of this should probably be scrubbed if you're running a trimester or if you're running Lencioni in your meeting. All of this should be scrubbed. Your pathway should be a constant conversation. Here's why I want to push on that. And any of you guys on the Grow team push on it as well. If you were in the secular world, this would be what we call hot leads, right? Like people are literally coming to your church, which is what you guys want. And then if we have a system that doesn't follow up well or is too mechanical, and I love what Joel said, it needs to fit your demographic and your distinctives as a church. So you should not plug and play what they're doing at Church 360. You should, or what Summit's doing in Spokane, what Nick and his team, they've been scrubbing it. Nick, you can talk about that a little bit. Don't plug and play because your people are just they're varied as far as what's working, but you also need to be very aware of when something stops working. I think a lot of us wait too long to tweak when something stopped working. And so we have to be really careful about that. Anyone else want to ask questions or talk about pathway? Back to the momentum killer. Here's what I'm saying. The reason this is on here is because if you have momentum in the fall, but your pathway is broken or not working, that momentum will stop. Does that make sense? So basically, you're celebrating. Our numbers are up. We're up 15%, but people are the back door. We call this the front door. If you can see my cursor, you guys see these areas here. This is the back door. So if this is working, great. But this is where we keep people, if they don't connect, if they're not finding a place to serve, if they're not ultimately engaging, whatever that is, your back door is also pretty wide open. So just be aware of that because you won't notice it till next spring when you go, man, our fall was massive, but now it's kind of stabilized. So I don't care what size you are, what size of church, you may be dealing with 3 to 4 connect cards every week. You may be dealing with 50 or 60. The principle still applies. Anybody else want to address their journey or ask questions around that?
I do have one question, Lee. Is anybody who's multi-site, is anybody centralizing this?
Jeremy, great. Jeremy, maybe you could tell us what you're doing and then some of the other guys could speak to it because you are multi-site. Tell us how you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're kind of working through this process right now. It's a little, I mean, we have specific processes in place for each location, but we're trying to figure out if there's value in having it centralized to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And I was curious to know if anybody else is doing that.
Anybody? How many people with multi-site are having maybe I'll ask this question, it'll spur something. Your campus is responsible for follow-up versus central team. Jeremy, what is it in your case?
Yeah, right now it is at the campus level. We've just tried to figure out if there's value in centralizing all the connect cards, for example, and then making sure that there's a clear pathway. The issue we run into is somebody's on sabbatical, somebody's on vacation, and nothing pisses me off
Nothing
more than
moves.
like somebody's out and it's like, oh, I asked to volunteer a month ago and nobody followed up with me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's that dark hole.
we're multi-site, but I was going to say we centralized the process in terms of like everybody, but then the campus could do like it's up to the campus pastor to be following up, and so that might look different, like you said, to the because we were on the
Sure.
northeast side of Raleigh and the southwest side in Cary, and the types of people are very different, so we might use different approaches.
Love it. Love it. Here's the thing, we're going to move because we could spend a whole call on this, but this will probably be a deep dive. So those of you that are like, man, we need more conversations in deep dive. There is a challenge at the top and the bottom of this that we need to recognize and spend. In other words, there is where you guys see on this on the thing, there isn't really a gap here because I messed up the slide, but there really should be a gap between each of these tiers because part of the biggest work your team will do is moving people from one path to another. And the reason we call it a pathway is because we want you to approach it in an invitational way because these are people that are not connected with you. And so there has to be intentionality around this in a huge way, whatever approach you use. Okay. So we'll probably deep dive around this a little bit, but this is so key. And if you have not scrubbed this in a while, Austin, or in other ways, we need to because you're going to experience that fall momentum, but it's going to fall off. It's going to be a blocker if we don't shore it up. Okay. All right, here we go. Next, you got communication that is cluttered. Oh, yay, right? And this really runs two lines. Okay. So there's always two parallel paths when we talk about communication. One is church communication, right? It's how are we communicating to our church community? The second one is staff communication. How are we communicating internally? For the sake of this call, the objective of our team was to talk about church communication. This is not a communication call or any of that, but I think it's important for you guys as the leaders to be scrubbing this fall. What is our current communication effectiveness? And also, where are the areas that we are anemic? All right. Here's the areas that I think you guys are probably challenged, and somebody hone in on what I'm going to miss, okay? Because you won't offend me. Typically, communication involves some kind of social media presence that you have. If you're a larger church, you probably have somebody who owns that. If you're a smaller church, you may own it. And so that's fine, right? It also involves stuff that's being said from the platform on the weekends and or at your gatherings. That's a form of communication. Anything that people put in their hand. Hey, Nick, I'm going to ask you to unmute for a second. I want to get a couple of you that I know are doing some stuff that's creative. I honestly don't know if it's effective, but we're going to allow it to live creatively at the moment. And maybe you can answer the question around this. Nick, can you talk about your once a month thing that you guys started doing that I assume you're still doing? That's kind of a hybrid bulletin thing. That's a way that you've decluttered communication a little bit there in Spokane. And this is where I need you to be enthusiastic about it and not
I'm
tell
super
us it
excited.
sucks.
Super excited to share. Yeah, so our communication structure, we have a couple. We used to do, so I'll give a little history. We used to do far too many highlights on a Sunday, and it was obnoxious. Everybody was checking out, and our lead pastor hated it, more or less. So we were trying to kind of figure out, okay, what does our communication structure look like? So we do 2 highlights a weekend from the platform. One is always targeted at new families with a clear next step for them where they go. The second one is an opportunity within our church that reaches at least 25% of our demographic. So we had to really hone in on that because there's just too many things happening. So then it becomes, okay, how do I highlight my thing? People are getting frustrated. My thing's not getting talked about. So we leverage social media. And this is what's been kind of interesting to me is the most effective thing we do is we send out a monthly newsletter. It sounds stupid, but it's through MailChimp, and we try and make it actually really visually appealing, and people can click on what they're looking for. And so it's like, here's what's happening during the month, and we get like out of about 3,000 people it goes to 3,500, we get like a 70% open rate on it because we're not constantly doing it and spamming people.
Got
it's
it.
1 month. And then we get a lot of, like, we see our registrations for everything we do increase significantly after that goes out. So
Talk about that one page thing. That's amazing, Nick. Talk about that one page you guys make available. If I missed it, I was chatting with somebody.
The fresh sheet is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Talk
Yeah,
about
so
because I
we
haven't seen
also
anybody else do this. So talk about it.
we also have, yeah, so we have something at the beginning of every month that's called a fresh sheet, which is kind of like we took it from like think of like a small menu at a restaurant of like here's what's happening, here's our latest things, but it just highlights everything that's happening. It's broken down into ministry areas, so it's here's adults, here's students, here's our care opportunities. So and those go out the first of every month, so the first Sunday of every month. And so we'll just mention it, hey, if you want to grab one of these, they're in the commons. And it's just another way for us to keep what's happening in front of people without having to always talk about it from the platform.
When I was on site with them and I saw the fresh sheet, again, it's not rocket science. It's kind of a monthly bulletin, but I'll say a couple things. One is it's super sharply done. So that's part of it, right? But it's also like, it's like everything that's happening in my hand. It's the kind of thing somebody could take and put up on the fridge. I realize it's analog, but I'm just telling you guys, it's a creative way of putting everything in a place, and it stops them from having to talk about it constantly, I assume, Nick, right? Like it's on the fresh sheet, it's on the fresh sheet. Anybody else have anything else that they're doing communication wise that might be helpful for people to adapt or know about? Anybody?
Hey, question for you. Any chance he could attach that fresh sheet?
Fresh sheet. Yeah, Nick, if you could take a picture of it or something, I think people would love it. Or send it to me and I'll send it out when I send the email out.
You guys are assuming I have a digital copy of that readily avavel, but
no, just go take a screenshot literally of it and just
Okay.
take a picture of it. Yeah,
I'll
it's pretty
down.
awesome. Okay. It's great. So all of that to say, as you get in the fall, this is the time to talk about yes, fresh sheet, fresh sheet, fresh sheet. This is the time to talk about communication. How many of you are frustrated with your communication? Show of hands. Okay. What is the primary frustration, Dwayne, that you have with your in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, because we're going to run out of time? That's good, Mike. Good point.
It's just not very strategic. It's all over
Okay.
the place, and it's a responsive to what we feel like
Right.
is urgent and we haven't gotten a response to. So there's not a good strategy behind it. So it's just
Right.
throwing up on the congregation.
Let me give you three things. And I love Mike's comment in the chat where he said some of our communication problem is not a communication problem. It's actually a clarity of strategy problem. That's a summary of what he's saying. Basically, when we don't know what's important, we communicate everything. So I love, thank you, Mike. Like that's worth the call. Is just going, Mike, I'll send you a Starbucks card. But like, if you're not aware of where you're trying to go with pathway and all that stuff, you're going to communicate all kinds of stuff. So these are three tools, resources that I just wanted to throw up here. Number one is, we have a thing that we call Sync Up that some of our Grow Momentum churches use. It's basically a once a month gathering, and however you would want to do that. It's a meeting. I just wanted to call it a gathering to make it sound like it's not a meeting. But basically, it's syncing up communication for the next trimester, right? So you're the next month. So you think 3 month increments. So it's what are we communicating on each weekend through physical, through speaking from the platform, etc. Here's why I'm advocating for some sort of a sync up is you get all of your ministry leads in the room, you're in the room, or your executive or someone with accountability and authority, and they actually wrestle with how to prioritize. So dumb example, your group's guys in the room, but there's a big outreach thing that we're doing, and you sit there and you go, guys, we can't talk about all of this. This isn't on target. This isn't on vision. And they go, you know what? I'm going to move my thing 2 weeks later, or I'm going to do this, or I don't need this again, or we've already talked about it once. So you begin to build a collaborative spirit around deciding when things get talked about, but it also gives your team at a glance, anytime, day or night, what that looks like. I can attach that to you guys here in the chat when I get a second to breathe. I'll send you a Google Doc that would share with that. I'm also going to give you guys some host guidelines that we worked through when I was at the Crossing last fall, where some of you guys need, and you can tweak it and use it. It's basically, I pulled all of our people who ever hosted into the room, and we reset what they were doing because they were just all over the place. And so we reset what that host moment moment look like? So I'm going to give that to you guys as well, so you can either use it or get it to your programming worship people to try to rein that in. The other thing that I saw recently a lot of churches are doing, this isn't rocket science, is literally they're holding to a top 3, and they're holding to it, and they're not allowing it. And that doesn't mean 3 things in addition to offering and giving and all of that. It's 3, right? Because all of you hate the host moment at your church. Most of you hate the host moment. Most of you do. And so it's because it's too much, too long. And all of your staff hates it too, but they don't want you to cut their stuff. So you have to create a system around it. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. Brandon, you want to talk a little bit more about this? Actually, you know what? Let me go to the next slide. Let me go to this slide. I'll have Brennan talk about this, Brandon. This is what we call distinction. Just direction without a distinction. And Brendan, I just want you to talk about our values, thoughts for about 1 minute, and then we're going to move right through this. Okay. But talking about how our values determine some of our direction. Here's that slide for you.
Yeah, one of the big things that we see when we're, just even talking through churches and their core values is we have some convictions that are really kind of connected to how we want to engage, like the engagement of people. So, a lot of people are like, yeah, we want to help reach the world. That's a part of the overall mission, of every church. And we're convicted to help reach people, have discipleship. But what we love to see and what will help you in a clear up those things, one, in your communication and what you prioritize and what the different trimesters look like, is what are your actual core values, the distinctives that make you you? We may all and we should believe in evangelism, but as the examples are, but the way we do it as a church and uniquely is we believe in relational evangelism, not just evangelism. And that just helps us clear for the team the way we do things, why we do things, and what, obviously how we're going to live this out throughout our community. Hopefully that's 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's good. It's the idea that literally we always say, as you think about direction for the fall and you still have time to scrub, and you think about what's coming up in the first trimester of 2026, don't violate your values. You go to some conference, you come to Think Tank Live, you go to Exponential, you go to something, and all of a sudden you're like, they're doing Rooted. Let's all do Rooted. It's like, cool. We all love Rooted. It's great, but it may not be the right thing for Kevin's church or for Neil's church or for Brian's church. They have to filter it through what is our distinctive? Where are we? What are the things? Kevin, you and I sat and had breakfast and talked at length about this. Like, what are the things that we distinctively bring to our community? And what are the things that are distinct about our community that we need to make sure has plays into the direction that we go? All right. Anybody on the team want to add to that? I just think that's a huge conversation. I mean, it's massive, but I wanted to make sure that you guys at least got a taste of that. And if you don't know what they are, if you don't know what your distinctives are, then we probably need to have a conversation around that, because that's going to be a killer for you. Okay. 3 minutes left. So let's go one more, and then we're not going to get to all of them. Here we go. Hey, look at that. We're going to go 2 ahead because I want to get to Brandon. I think I want to get to the one that we talked about. Oh, activity without accountability. This will be our last one. Okay. This is where we talk about how you're actually setting accountability with your team. Okay. There are different ways to do this. So to be fair, but the question is, are you doing it? Right. So somebody posted earlier in here that they're using Leader. I think it was Joel was talking about how they're using Leader because there's some tools there. There's some of you, Brian has Google Sheets, Becker has Google Sheets coming out of his face all the time. Everything's on a Google Sheet. We have a dashboard that at Gromentum that all of you that have gone through process have, that actually allows you to red, yellow, green where you are. But basically what we want you to do is make sure that you're doing some degree of what we call rocks. Some of you are doing Big Six, which I think is the Lencioni thing. But basically, it's the idea that your meeting flow or your rhythm flow should be either on a quarterly or trimester basis. So if you're in fall right now, at some point at this fall, you're going to pull the team aside. You're going to spend a few hours, and in some way, you're going to set what are our objectives or our primary things we're going to go after in the first trimester or quarter of 2026. Right. And you're going to list those things and you're going to have them laid out so that we know exactly what's going on. So when I go in here to this, and I'm doing something I probably shouldn't do because I'm gonna be technically challenged. So this is from the Grow Minimum. So I'm gonna go to, hey Joel, is it safe for me to go to yours? Oh, we'll go to this one. You ready? Okay, so this is Calvary. So this is Omaha. This is their 10-year vision. This is their 3-year view. Okay, we're going down. This is not the part I care to talk to you about, but this is their strategy for this year that they're finishing up on. And there's Aaron, so he's on here. And this is an example of their rocks. So they set these for trimester 2 of last year, which would have been they're just finishing them up right now, I believe. Doesn't matter. I just wanted to give you an example of every time that Aaron and Ryan meet with their team for work on it, they go around the room and they ask LH, whoever that is, have we aligned the guest services spaces with ministry needs? Green means we're on track. That's happening. Orange means and red means we've got to have a conversation. Typically, if anything, it would be red or orange on here. I would encourage you to make that part of the agenda of that meeting to go, okay, if it's orange or red, let's talk about how we support the fall group campaign through guest services. Okay. So I'm not advocating you use this. Obviously, we love that our churches, some of the churches of Grow Minimum are using it. I'm advocating that you're going to have momentum block if you don't have something set for accountability. Now, don't go back this afternoon and go, we're doing rocks or whatever. Slow down. But if you do not have currently something that is setting your team ahead for a quarter or a trimester, that's going to be a blocker for you. So we need to make that change. Anybody want to add to this conversation before we wrap it up today with 5 minutes left? I know we're fire hosing you, but that's why I want to take the last few minutes and deep dive you. Anybody running rocks that wants to speak to it?
Yeah, just a reminder that just weekly, not just quarterly, so you don't just set it and forget it, but always keep in track.
Thank you, Joe. That's right. So you're setting it quarterly or trimesterly is what Joe's saying, translating, but you're checking it on a weekly basis. You're not just coming back 12 weeks later and going, how'd that go? So yeah, that's the whole objective, which then speaks back to what's your meeting rhythm? How's your meetings going, right? Are these things being covered in your meetings or in your one-on-ones? Okay. All right. We fire hosed you today. I apologize. Here's what we're going to do before we kick off. We'll pray and get off because we're going to lose some people. Okay, so we're going to do three deep dives. So you're going to drop these in the chat if this is something that interests you, and that you will get an invite from one of our team. So the first deep dive that we're going to do is around meeting flow. If you're interested in, say, I want to deep dive for 30 minutes into how I can run my meetings a little more effectively, just drop meeting into the chat real quick and we'll grab your name and we'll send an invite to you in the next 10 days for that. Okay. If you need pathway help, deep dive on guest pathway. We need clarity. We need to scrub. I've never seen that before. We've done it and it's confusing. Chris Hall's like, yes, we keep doing it. And I'm not sure how to move people in my city. They're weird people. If you would like to deep dive, just put pathway in the chat and that would be pretty helpful for us to then follow up with you. If you want to, we're only going to do 4. So I'm going to give you 4. Meetings, pathway, communication. If you want to have a deeper dive into best practices, we don't have all the best practices, but these are calls that have 4 to 6 people where you can collaboratively work together on trying to get some traction on communication. Put calm in there. And the last one would be the rocks accountability. If you want to put rocks. So here they are. Meeting, you can do them all if you want. Meetings, pathways, calm, rocks. Meetings, pathway, calm, rocks. Maybe Brandon or somebody drop that in there. Meetings, pathway, calm, rocks. If you're interested in any or all of those, we'll give you out a 30, it'll only be 30 minutes from one of our Growminum team, and they will hit you up to follow up on that and make that happen. Just remember, you guys, we appreciate you. You're going to get this YouTube link sent to you first thing in the morning. You're also going to get the deck sent to you with these deep dives. The last thing I'll say to you is our team started putting out Monday encouragement and challenging through what we're calling Monday Fuel. Some of you have already subscribed to it through Substack. It's basically, the idea is, as a pastor, I remember every Monday thinking, I've got to meet with my team this week. What do I have to kind of challenge them or lead them through? So we're trying to bridge that gap for you and give you some stuff that you can steal, not even give credit if you don't want to, delete or use when you walk in with your team. And so I'll send that link out in the somebody could drop it in there, that Substack link out into our follow-up email. But the best thing to do would probably be to subscribe to that, and then that will give you the ability to actually get that Monday morning in your inbox. So let me drop that in there real quick before you guys all start signing off. Here we go. View post, share post, copy link. Here we go. All right. Before we get off here, let's have a word of prayer. Johnny, you're all the way in the UK. Can you give us a 60-second prayer before everybody's got to go to lunch, and just pray over our churches and this fall and what's going on? I really appreciate it, bud.
Lord, we thank you for this time together. Lord, we thank you for the insight that can be given. But Lord, we ask that Holy Spirit, that you would just impart into all of us. Lord, I pray for all of the people stateside, Lord, that as their days start, Lord, give them a good day, give them a great day. Lord, I pray that you would be with them in all that they need to do. Lord, I pray that in all that they need to communicate and in all the people that they need to meet, Lord, I just pray that you give them wisdom and discernment in your name. Amen.